Welcome back. On the Paralyzed, Prosperous podcast, we focus on business, leadership, and personal development. And of course, I have the lovely Alalai. What's up, Alalai?
What's up, guys? How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. And of course, I have the guy Jorge A. Sierra.
Yeah, I mean, my brother just butchered my name, but listen, I know he loves me. You know what I'm saying? I know he loves me. This is your guy, Jorge A. Sierra. You know what I'm saying? That's the Deacon, a.k.a. Steez, a.k.a. DJ. He goes by many names. And then we got the queen of the show. You already know, the queen, Alalai. But we're super happy to be here. We're super happy to, have another episode, man. First of all, man, God is good, allowing us to come on every week. And, one of the things that I want to point out, man, that it's never going to always be perfect. And so I'm super excited to just get started. I'm super excited to be doing life and business with the queen, Alalai, with my brother, DJ, a.k.a. Steez, a.k.a. Deacon, right? Like, we got many titles and we wear many hats. But, yeah, man, I'm souped, man. I'm souped. This is our third episode that we're recording. And, I just want y'all to know that, man, stop getting in your way, man. Just get started. Get started. Things are not going to be perfect, but I can't wait to see a year from now how we're going to develop this podcast and how we're going to grow, not only, as a unit, but individually. So, yeah, man, DJ, I appreciate you, King. Even though you butchered my name, but you know what I'm saying? We good. I'm going to have to just call me. I'm going to have to certify you to just call me G Wills. Like, I'm going to have to. I'm gonna be like, yo, listen, man, we're gonna allow it on the podcast.
Hey, that's not fair. But anyways, I tried. I tried. But hey, man, like you said, I really want to go back to kind of what you said about just getting started. You know what I'm saying? Number one, just get started and understand you have the tools. You have the tools in your bag to just get started, and then use what you have to get to that next level. And then boom, when you get to that next level, it's just success brings on more success, right? So it's all really all about, using what you have. And, it's amazing because we're fresh off the trip with Jorge. We just spoke at, I don't want to butcher this name either. Alalai, what is the name of this high school again?
Lansdowne High School in Maryland.
Lansdowne High School, out in Baltimore, Maryland, right? And it was just an amazing outing. There was a lot to unpack there. So we're going to definitely do that through this episode. But one thing that really stood out to me, and I wanted to start with this, was the fact that before anything happened, the principle started with transparency. And, this in this situation, like, that was awesome. It was one of those things where it helped you understand what she wanted from the crowd. It was one of those things that also helped us, even me as the person who's capturing this stuff, it helped me understand, okay, what does she want captured? After bringing us in, what is she looking to be done all around, right? And so I just wanted to kind of tap in on that first, transparency, almost in general. How important is transparency to y'all?
Yeah. Now let's start off with this, right? First of all, that's important. That's huge, right? But I want to remind anybody that's tuning in that don't know what this podcast is about. We work with organizations. We work also with schools and leadership, right? And so that's what J.S.A. really has embodied, and that's our why, right? Teaching other individuals how to go from that paralyzed to prosperous mindset and becoming the leader in their life to be able to take control of their personal or professional, right? So yeah, this going back to what DJ was just talking about, we had the opportunity to go to Baltimore and serve, right, and go to this high school, which ultimately they drove in some middle schools. I think there was one or two other schools that were part of that sister school, and we had the opportunity to speak to two groups of young men, right? Because let's not call them kids. The young men, anything from the 8th to 9th grade first group, and then I think the rest were from all the way from sophomore to seniors, in the second group. And that's really what we went to do, is give these young brothers the tools, right, to identify who they are, right? Because I mean sometimes just us as grown men and young and grown women, we need to be reminded of the gift that God gives us and how we should be operating. And so it's always a blast to go into these spaces and help out these young brothers and sisters This time around was just all males, right? We had the opportunity to speak to all boys, and that speaks to my heart because, like you both know, I always tell you guys, and you guys know my story inside out. Like if you lived it with me, but I never had those type of mentors. I never had those type of that type of information that allowed me to really become the man that I needed to become at one point in my life. And I praise God for, eventually getting me there. But our goal as JSA is really to, give these young brothers and sisters a jump start on what that is. So yeah, if you're tuning in right now, this is what the JSA, this is what the Paralyzed to Prosper podcast is we talk in regards to leadership when it comes out to your personal or professional, whether it's organizational, whether it's schools, or whether it's you in your household. So welcome. I appreciate you guys. And then going back to what DJ just spoke of, it's just really, the beauty of this opportunity is that when we got into the school, the principal, man, shout out to the principal, but she was really, it's been a while since I've seen somebody invested into their student body. And not that I don't see that often, because I do see a lot of the schools bringing us on, and that's why they bring us in, is because they are invested and they want their student body to really operate at a high level. But you can see the emotional, concern in in her. She got a little teary as she was explaining what the challenges were and what was her goal for the overall picture of this school, of her school. She's been there for about a year and a half, so she's a new principal. And so she was like, yeah, we need to bring Jorge in and the rest of the JSA to be able to help me, to align with her and team up with her and help her get to that point where she's creating report with her students. And it was just great, man. It was great. It was great to be able to go in there. It was great to see that in her, because I love to see, as she was expressing to us guys, remember, she was just talking about she's a mother, right? And so it's hard when you're working with people, but when you're working with young brothers and sisters, young folks, man, as a parent, it's hard for you to not really be, not to hit you in a certain way, because some of these some of these young brothers and sisters don't really have the support, the report with adults that they feel trust, that they feel comfortable, and be able to share what their thought process is, right? A lot of these young kings, they were like anything from 15, 14, all the way
13.
to 13, right, all the way to maybe 17, if I'm not mistaken. And it was good to see that from her, man. So I was off the rip, like you said, DJ. I was ready to engage because I seen her, and if anybody knows me, man, I I'm all about emotions, man. I'm That's what I use to be able to connect when I'm speaking to any group of individuals. I love to do the I don't like getting on stage. I like to be right in front of the crowd. Why? There's this emotional connection that you do, and which is what I love the most when I'm able to share in front of a group, is to be able to connect with the room. And so she set the tone off the rip, man. So yeah, it was official. It was an official moment.
For sure. For sure. I like you. Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think, kind of like Jorge said, one of the things that really helped set the tone was her transparency.
Yeah.
And I think it was a great lesson for all of us in that, right? Or at least a great reminder. When you're in a position that you need help with whatever it is you're building, whether that means building a community, building a school system, or whatever you're building, being transparent to say, I have some situations that I can't handle and I need to bring in reinforcements. that will help catapult you. And so she was very transparent about what she needed from us. And she trusted us with that process. And I think we went in and did what we normally do, is knock it out the park. And that made us want to be even more invested in what she was trying to accomplish, because she was upfront about what she needed, the things that she struggled with, and where she was hoping to get results. And so it made it super easy to go in and serve her. Plus, she was phenomenal. She's phenomenal. And so, yeah, I think it was, again, a great lesson to take from that. When you're building something and you can be upfront about whatever it is, what you need, the support you need, your shortcomings, whatever, God will definitely send the people to help you get it done.
Amen. Amen.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Um. So I kind of brought up this whole authenticity conversation because of a clip that of Jorge talking to some students. Now, we're gonna play this clip right after this, but basically, it's going to give you some background on just to give you some background on the clip. Jorge was kind of talking. Some young men were kind of on their phones. They was kind of doing their own thing. So this is what happened when that happened.
I'm gonna introduce myself, man. What's good, man? My name is Jorge. I appreciate you. All right? What's good, man? Jorge. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Is it cool? And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm not trying to even clown nobody now. But I want you to understand, like, I'm here because of what? I want you to win. And you might not be going through certain things, but there's other folks in here that are going through certain things, right? So it's all about love and respect.
So basically, this was a clip that kind of sparked this whole conversation, right? And I, from a personal standpoint, me watching Jorge, me seeing him, do this many different times, that this stood out to me the most, one of the most, because this time I felt like it showed purely how authentic, from Brandy's standpoint, it shows purely how authenticity can win people over, or win people's respect, right? And so, Jorge, talk to me about that moment. Exactly what was kind of going through your head when you did that.
Yeah, man. Listen, I think that I really and I wasn't being deep enough. I wasn't trying to be deep about it, but it was. I'm a father, right? And I'm all about respect, right? And I'm huge on people respecting me. But I understood years ago, for you to obtain respect from people, you got to operate at a respectful level, always. And so I'm always, my wife, a lot of people that know me, they say, bro, you got a gift of building relationship because I am very intentional making sure that I make people comfortable. And I get uncomfortable when people are not comfortable and they're in my space. I don't like operating out of that. I never like bullies. I never like there's just this aura of people when in 2023 we have this thing that it's just a lack of respect, in my opinion, in so many different ways, right? And so at that moment, it was just more like I set the tones. I always go into these environments. It doesn't matter what organization, what school. I treat people the same way I like to be treated. I introduce myself and then I ask permission for me to come in and speak in your house, because that's really what I talk about. I was like, like, I know this is your house. I know they're bringing me in here, but I don't want to just come in here and take off my shoes and get comfortable in your house and expect you to automatically give me respect, because it doesn't work like that, right? So I always operate. So I asked everybody as a collective. I was accepted. They said, Jorge, go in there. And as I'm talking, you know, um, young brothers are playing with the phones and they're just, you can hear them, and and not only is distracting, but it's just disrespectful. So I took the moment to give them a life lesson, right? Like realistically, one of the questions that I do ask these young brothers and sisters when I come in is like, uh, raise your hand if you're tired of being treated like a kid. Raise your hand if you're tired of being always being told what to do. Because we all been 16, man. We all know what it is to be in a space that you're old enough to make some decisions, but not old enough to run, make your own decisions. And I got a 16-year-old in my household, so I get it. You know what I'm saying? But I like my whole point to them and really bringing that attention to them is like, you know, you guys want to be treated like little kids, but here we are acting like little kids. And so I just really wanted to teach him a life lesson and how, what is the first thing that you have to do when you come into any environment or any relationship for you to get to the next level. Again, we're talking about leadership, guys, right? And this fits for you managers. This fits for you stakeholders in your organizations, right? You just can't talk to people or be disrespectful in a space because you have power. And so that was my intention, just to go off the rip. Even though I had the power to be in front of them and they had to listen to me somewhat, that's not the truth. And so I took the moment to kind of like let them know, like, yo, as you've seen the clip, I reintroduced myself. Listen, I just my name is Jorge. Like, I'm here. And I asked permission. Blah. But I just think it's mad disrespectful that you're not engaging. You're just playing with your phone, and I'm not gonna allow that. I won't tolerate. Like, I don't disrespect nobody, but I'm also not gonna allow anybody to disrespect me. And it was for me to show them that for us to be able to help these young brothers out here, we really got to show them characteristics. You know, what's your character? And character is everything. And you don't have to have the skill set. You don't got to have the information. You might be standing by yourself. But one of the things that I always understood since I was young, and it's something that was embedded in me coming up in the hood in the project. It's just, bro, your name is everything. Your word is everything. So your character, how you move and how you treat people, that's the most important when you don't have nothing. When you don't got nothing else to give, you don't got money to give, you don't have the skill set. What do you have? You got you. You got your name. And that I guess that's what I was trying to really embed it into them. And mind you, man, a lot of those young brothers have been reaching out to me. They're hitting the DM. And you know, sometimes, you know, we think that these kids don't want, you know, structure. They just need to be I did it with love. And obviously I wasn't trying to clown nobody or embarrass anybody, but I had to let them know, like, not like let's not do that. Let's not disrespect each other.
No, 100, 100. And that's how it came off too. It didn't come off like you was disrespecting them. And of course, y'all were able to kind of see that in the clip. But yeah, man, I think that was super important. I think it goes back to, for me, another thing that comes up in that, it goes back to you being able to control the room with respect. You know, I've been in, when I was even in college, you know, we had speakers come there and say they didn't get the respect they wanted. Well, it would come off more as, well, I'm this person at this status. Y'all need to be respecting me. Well, you in that situation, you were more like, okay, I'm coming up with respect for you, and I was saying I expect the same respect back.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So that was huge. And another thing is going back to the controlling the room, right? I always talk to you about how one of the biggest things I admire you for is how you can go into any room of any organization and control it, right? And you tell me what? You tell me that you've been you've been running. What's the saying you always say? You say you've been pretty much leading grown men since you was 15 years old. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of wanted you to tap in with that, and how that helps you correlates over to leadership and you controlling rooms now.
I think you know. I think you know, and I don't think I one thing. And that's a great question, man, D. Because you know, one of the things that a lot of folks really think is that certain people just you know are like I had to learn this skill set because I came from lack of. Right? I came from not having certain things, certain information, certain guidance, and so I had to figure a lot of things out by myself. Me and I were talking. We were talking this weekend, and it's just as young people, we got to figure out a lot, and we get put in situations that we look back like, yo, we shouldn't have been in that situation. Like, looking back, it's like, yo, who co-signed that for us, right? Like because you obviously are not young enough to even connect the dots at the moment, but you look back and it's like you grow up faster than what you probably should, and so that happens with a lot of us in our you know in certain cultures that you know. But I realized is that one of the things that I had to learn from the get go is to be heard and voiced, and so that leadership came in because I felt a lot of times that if I didn't speak up for myself, I was going to be a victim to the situation and the environment. And so I don't think that I was being intentional with that, but you're right. I've been leading since people ask me, yo, how long you been a you know professional speaker or been into leadership? Like, yo, I've been doing this since I was like 15, probably even why. Well, I've been in situations when I'm telling grown men what to do. Obviously, at 15, I wasn't I wasn't doing leadership the right way, meaning I wasn't developing myself and putting you know other people in the right positions to do certain you know positive things because I was adapting to my environment. But you're right. At 15, I was the one telling grown men like, "Nah, we're not doing that. Yep, yes, we're doing this. Matter of fact, you go do that." And that just developed from the lack of, and I understood that I just couldn't sit there and allow my situation define who I was in a way that dictated what I was going to get out of life. And I believe that started turning into a skill set. But obviously, years after is when I realized that yo, you do go into rooms and you know, and are able to command a room. Now I learned to not overuse it because you do come across if as a leader, again, just not that could come across as a bully, that could come across that disrespectful,
Right.
that could come across egotistical, that could come across like, who is this dude? And so I give grace to God that I've been able to grace through those skills and sharpen them in a way that is with love. Is with me securing other people's emotion and making sure that I empower people in the room, because we always talk about leadership, right? The level 5 leadership. What is the level 5 leadership, right? For you stakeholders out there, those that are running your companies, that whether you have 2 or 3 people that are working with you, whether you have 20 people working with you, or you have several departments, you got to get off that egotistical and that because you have the power, things got to get done. That it doesn't work like that. And mind you, it might work for a little bit, but eventually it's gonna fall in your face. It's gonna collapse, right? And so I know that Alan and I, we got stories because me and Alan kind of talked about certain, her working in certain environments. But when you peel that back, it's like, man, how comfortable can you actually create? Going back to what we talked about last episode, I think, guys, it was the trust. And so, yeah, even though I've had this skill set for a long time that I came across and I kind of embraced it without knowing, because it was more of a survival uh, uh, instinct. It was a survival tool. I've been able to really now, and mind you, we keep it transparent at P2P a podcast, right? I'm still working on it, right? I'm still working on it, still shopping, and that's going to be a journey. It's not going to be just a destination, because I always, we talk about just certain people where they have the spirit of leading, and sometimes they don't even got to say much.
Right. And sometimes, I feel like sometimes that's even stronger. That's even more leading.
To me, that's a true leader. When your presence just challenge other individuals to want to do better and want to operate off of greatness. Yeah, that's
right. And I mean, shoot, that's how I feel about y'all too. I mean, as the J.S.A team, like when I'm around y'all, I just want to be better. You know what I'm saying? It makes me want to be a better person. You know what I'm saying? So, so Al, I wanted to ask you, from this specific gig, what are some moments and some things that kind of stood out to you?
Control, definitely. Jorge's ability to control the room, and I think why that's important is because there were other people there that were in leadership in that environment. Like, they're there daily. But the students responded to Jorge differently, and so it was his ability to control the room, his ability to set the tempo, and I think something that's very important too, he kind of mentioned it earlier, but boundaries. Like, you have to enter these spaces with boundaries, and you can't be afraid to tell people you've overstepped that boundary. And so the clip I think kind of reinforces that, because as he mentioned, he set the tone. He talked about expectations. He talked about respect. So when you have these young men who are being kids, right? You have these young men being kids, and their inability to stay committed to what they said they were going to do, which is be respectful, interrupted the flow, right? Like, that interrupted someone else's learning experience. And there were students there that were genuinely plugged in and like had questions. And so, like you mentioned, he just ever so graciously and effortlessly, he went to them and he was able to correct them in a loving manner and reinforce that boundary and say, hey, like, this was the agreement. You're not holding up your end of the deal, right? And we kind of joked about it earlier, but for me, you did see other kids that were kind of having little side conversations, just not as intense as that set of kids. You saw them go like, oh, let me straighten up a little bit. And to me, like, that's what that boundaries will do, but that's what authenticity will do too, because he was consistent. He didn't start the presentation off one way and then it kind of trickled and he ended up being a different personality by the end of it or nothing like that. He was consistent in who he was. He was consistent in the things that he said. Everything tied together. And he was consistent with saying, y'all are violating my boundaries, let's get it together. Right? And so, I think those are just great lessons for us, no matter what environment that you're in. Sometimes you're going to have to step up and be the leader, even when it's not necessarily your house, right? Like, you might be a guest in that space. But for the sake of your own, being able to operate authentically, sometimes that means you're going to have to say, yeah, this doesn't work for me, even when it's not your place, right? And that's coming from someone, I'm like, cast out the bag. Like, that's coming from someone that's like, I've been reluctant to be a leader in many occasions. And just so happens, I always find myself in situations where I have to step up. Even when I want to be like, I'm going to I'm just gonna step back. I'm cool. Just want to kind of chill in the background. But the reality of it is, that's just not how I'm made. Like, God made me to be able to lead and to give my input and provide some wisdom. And again, sometimes you have to do that when it's not your project, not your business, not your organization, whatever. But it's for the greater good. And you cannot be afraid to do that. And that's what the authenticity ties into. Every step of the way, everywhere you go, no matter what the room is, stepping in and being yourself and leading as you're called to lead.
But Adelaide, real quick, right? But like, just even touching on that because I know, this is not the first time you actually bring that up, right? And it's like, yo, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times I don't even get called to. I don't sign up for it, but I end up doing it, right? But I want people to really catch that because it's just your expectations of not only yourself but the environment you put yourself in,
Right.
right? And
Absolutely.
sometimes Adelaide, right? And sometimes it's like you either allow it and you
Mm-hmm.
can step away and not take that leadership role, whether you ask for it or not, or you kind of assess your situation and like,
Mhm.
I don't want to be part of this foolishness. I can't be
Mm-hmm.
part of this foolishness. So it goes back to your, you know,
So,
what do you stand for?
Yeah.
I wanted to highlight that because man, a lot of y'all are in environments and y'all want to complain about managers and systems and process, but you're like with all due respect, you being a fool sitting there and just operating off of that environment and you just part of the problem instead of becoming part of the solution. And it
Yeah.
takes it takes a leader. Sometimes you don't got to say something. We were just talking about that. Like if you're in a department and like yo, sometimes just picking up the broom. Sometimes it's just picking up after like not saying anything. And it's like oh okay like oh damn are we all gonna just sit here? But my man is cleaning up. And sometimes even the owners got to see that and checks the stakeholders of that company or that department
Absolutely.
to kind of remind their that like, yo, I didn't ask for this, but I can't be part of this. And so I think
Absolutely.
it's huge to really understand that, leadership doesn't you don't need the title.
mhm.
You
Yeah.
don't need the title to really operate of a true leader. And I believe that's a level 5 leadership characteristics right there.
Hmm.
Right.
Absolutely. The title means nothing. Ultimately, it's down to your behavior, right? Like how you're treating others, how you show up. I've had my own personal convictions about stuff, and sometimes it's small things. Sometimes it's like, girl, don't leave that paper on the floor, get it up. Even if I didn't put it down there, right? But it's silly, it's small stuff. But like I went through a season where every time I would go in a grocery store, if something was like knocked over on the shelf or something was on the floor, God was having me pick it up. And I was in my feelings about it. I was in my feelings. I was like, what? Why am I picking up something that somebody else did? But it was character building in that moment. It was like
Oh,
you saw it and it was out of place, and I've been afforded the opportunity to work in different environments, some retail, different type of businesses, sales, whatever. And so sometimes that leadership is you see the thing that's out of place, you fix it.
Make it better.
And you don't have to be asked, you make it better, right? And you don't have to be asked to do that. And so it doesn't have to be big projects though. Like sometimes we get caught up, like you said, the title or it has to be something huge. Sometimes it's not huge. Sometimes the leading is I'm going to clean my space when I get done at lunch. I'm going to clean my desk or I'm going to clean my little spot in the lunch area and not just leave my trash expecting someone else to clean behind me. That's a part of it, right? It's the small things, but we talk about that a lot about character building, about integrity, about showing up, and people are watching. People always watch whether you know it or not. They're looking and they're watching. So you have the opportunity to set an example and to set the tone. And we talk about company culture. You have the opportunity to define the company culture just by what you do, even if you never open your mouth.
100%.
Huge.
100%. And I'm glad we segued into the business side of this because I wanted to tap in on um, you know, again, this is about we want to help entrepreneurs as well and business owners. And one thing that I thought that we can kind of talk about, which is very small, but things happen unexpectedly, right? So, just from a media standpoint, what I seen was, how you would kind of ask for the clip, and of course, because of the computer, and of course, because of the projector and the system, it took about 30 seconds, right, to get to the video. And what intrigued me was the fact that in both different sessions, you literally filled that spot. Even though that was unexpected, like you thought it was gonna pop up right there, you was able to fill that time and still give the kids the background and give kids what's about to segue, what this video is about to segue into, right? So I wanted to see if you could tap in on just, especially as a speaker, being ready for unexpected things and how you can prepare for that.
Great question, and I didn't even think about that, man. But it's just instinct, right? Like when I want everybody to understand that 10,000 hour theory. It's really what it is. Like
100.
and I'll be honest with you, I left out of there. Let me pause that for a second and kind of go back. What do I always say to you guys whenever I come into a space with y'all? I'm like, yo, what could I have done different? I don't want to hear
Oh,
what was dope. I don't want, like, I get that. Like, I know I have a gift. I know God has blessed me to put me in rooms. I get that. But I'm my worst critic. And I'm always looking for, like, yo, guys, what can we have done different, right? Because you hear that from me all the time. And that's not because I move around and operate off of, just not understanding who I am and my greatness and what God has given me. Is because those 10,000 hours. So going back to what you was asking, when you are literally operating and you're literally are working on yourself as a professional, as a leader, then it's just instant. It's second nature for you to be able to see a gap and not even think about it and step in and be like, oh, okay, hold up. Like there's something that's it's delaying, right? Like we could tell that they were taking the 30 seconds, whatever, but I needed to continue to keep engaging with these guys because I want them to understand that it's all about the experience and what kind of leadership experience am I giving this group, right? And I want them that by the time I'm done with them, it wasn't more like, oh man, this is another speaker that's gonna talk down to us and just kind of like show some videos and give some theory. Nah, like I want to give them the experience of truly what we came in there to do, which is pour into them, really connect with them. And I understand that as someone that values leadership to a point that I go into organizations, I help companies, the stakeholders with their management, with their entry level, management level, right? Executive level, right? We go into schools, we help educators, we help the principals, we help their student body, right? There's levels of leadership, but I am also intrigued when somebody takes when I'm being led by somebody,
Mm-hmm.
when I'm and somebody's giving me the breakdown and it's really giving me the what's next, what's expected, what is the outcome of this, right? Because I believe that a lot of times leaders drop the ball because they don't know how to articulate what are their expectations. Going back to how we started this conversation, there was an expectation of respect in that room. I came in, I set the tone, I respected you enough to say, listen, give me permission to come in here and do what I do. But through that transition, that's what was so easy for me to go in there and be like, hold up, this is not adding up. You right? Like you're not respecting me. I thought we were over that. So in that moment, it's just more like, okay, like let me talk to them. Let them know what's next or what's the breakdown and engage in. So I believe that as you're being intentional in your career and your profession and whatever it is to you, your family, right? Like because we always talk about business and life in business, right? Like this could be you at home. And if you don't know how to, lead your family or talk to your son or your wife, then you're leaving them for guessing games. You're leaving them to be like, okay, so what's next? So there's a pause here. Why are you not helping me understand or give me the picture, or paint the picture, whatever that is, right? So for me to be able to see how we could get to that next level. So yeah, man, I just believe it's just I've done it for so long. I know what my expectations are when I'm being led by anybody. And so I always try to going back to what I always said, man, I like to treat people like I like to be treated, man. And that's how I check myself as a professional. That's how I check myself as a human being. And you can never go wrong with making sure that you give everybody exactly what you expect from them, from themselves. If you're on both sides of the equation, and so I think it was just one of those things that I didn't even think about it. It was just more like, okay, like we're not going to sit here and have them just look at me. So yeah, this is what's going on.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's crazy because when you was talking about that, well, all I could think about is when we're really talking about an efficient leader, it's easy to put an analogy of a basketball player, an efficient basketball player. Why? Because an efficient player, you're not just about to be, you can't just score the ball. You can't just pass the ball well. You have to really put all of it together, passing, shooting, defense, all of it, right? and you have to put it together off of the court and outside of those things, right? So when it comes down to being an efficient leader, you have to put those 10,000 hours in to understand what areas you have to get better in. And the areas that you're good in, of course, keep progressing those, but find areas that you're not good in and progress those as well. You know what I'm saying?
Facts. Nah, facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
But I want to point out too that like, yeah, Jorge has put in a lot of hours, but the beauty of that is like he didn't even catch it. Like you had to bring it up to him in this
But,
instance for him to be like, oh yeah, that was a thing, right?
but
And that just speaks to like the preparation, right? Like he's so prepared, like it wasn't even a thing. And I think that's something that a lot of people when they're struggling to get started, they're struggling to launch. It's like, well, what about this? Well, I don't have the answer to whatever. It's like, no, you just have to move forward and you have to trust that process. And then, are there going to be some flops sometimes? Yes. But then you will get to a point that when things do come up, you're not sweating them because you're able to move through them and do them so seamlessly. Like the kids weren't even tripping that there was a glitch and,
oh,
like,
definitely.
like
I, I
they
was
weren't
the only
even
one tripping.
tripping.
You're that media guy. We always talk about that
You
media
got
guy, right? Of course you was. But I wasn't even
you
tripping. But
media guy.
yeah.
Yeah, but it was just so natural. He just was able to roll right through it. And he continued the conversation going back to what he said earlier about building those relationships. And I think that, can be a gap for a lot of people if you're not prone to be out there building those relationships and continuing conversations, then you focus so much on your product or service or whatever the thing is, forget about the people aspect of it. So they wouldn't have cared. If the video never played, they wouldn't have cared because he was invested in them and they knew
You know what would have happened? I would have stopped popping willies. I would have just popped the whistle. I would have done something. We would have improvised to the foot. But I love why I love the fact that Alalai brought that kind of share some light on that because that's huge, guys. And what did we start with the podcast with? Like I'm like, yo, listen, we were laughing, and it's like, man, we're not caught up on this, like we're not. And so, in a
it.
year from now, you're gonna see the level up. 6 months from now, you're gonna see the level. You're gonna see the level of quality of just us breaking down teaching because that's really what we come on here just to make sure that not only we give you some concepts, some theories, but really show you how to do these things. But again, the best always, at times got to remind themselves. Going back to what Alalai just said, like just keep pushing, keep showing up, become the best version of yourself, and those are the true leadership characteristics. But do it authentically to who you are, right? I could never be anybody else. I would never try to be Adelaide. I never try to be DJ. But that's why we're such a dynamic and what God has put in amongst all three of us here because we all bring a beautiful uniqueness to this organization, this team. And this past weekend, man, I was just I want to thank both of y'all, man. Shout out to Mama Steve's, man, for showing up because she showed up. Shout out to Kayla. I have my son Jason in the building as well. And I need to share this with you guys because this is a quick testimony because I asked everybody. I always if you know me, I'm always again going back like yo, how could we have done this different? So anyway, there was a moment where I asked Jason and I said, yo, Jay, like what's like what what you thought of it? Because he's 16. He's in the building. What better credit than and Jay has heard my story, and he it's like he shuts off, I guess, because it's just like yo, I've heard this over and over. He's been hearing this since he was like 5 years old. But listen, for my surprising, and this is not only to just going back to everybody that has young brothers and sisters around them, they're listening. They're listening. It might not be at your time where you think they should listen, but keep talking, keep teaching them. But anyway, I asked him, I said, yo, what you thought? He was like, yo, be honest with you. I needed this a lot more than what I thought. I was like, what you mean? He's like, yo, like it really helped me. It helped me because I needed the encouragement. I was like, yo, I love you, bro. And I just took the moment because I was surprised that he wasn't even talking to me off like giving me feedback. He
Right,
was talking to me on some like, yo, I needed to receive this information.
right,
How whatever was shifting in that room, it really helped him in his space right now, being in high school. He's a sophomore, and it was just like, sometimes, man, like, again, us as adults, we got to continue to pour into our kids. We got to continue to make sure that, it's not what our expectations of what we think, the results should be, but it's more like keep pointing to people around you. So that was a testimony within my own son, and again, it was huge because when you could shift somebody or you could touch somebody that's accustomed to hearing the message over and over and over, and he's like, nah, that was good. I needed that. I was like, yo, God, I see you, man. So that was a testimony. I didn't know if I share that with you guys, but yeah,
Tell us that.
that was literally right after we got out the engagement, and I think it was when we were actually about to eat afterwards and stuff like that.
Hey, hey,
Yeah.
and I want to shout out to Jay too for just even helping me on the little side of things. Just lead again, serving before you can lead. My man's without me even asking was helping me out. So big shout out to Jay. Big shout out to his growth since I met him. When
Okay.
it comes down to it, man, I feel like I've known y'all for a little bit now, and he's grown since I've known y'all. So much respect, man.
Create the environment for them, man. Create the environment. I tell y'all, like, we all have a story. I tell people we're not here comparing narratives with nobody, right? We always talk about Jorge getting gunned down, but I know me and Alala have talking about, her upbringing and her situations. I know DJ, you and I have talked. Like, we all have a story, and so, let's just do better than what we were doing yesterday. That's it. And if you got young folks around you, involve them, talk to them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Good word. Let them know they're doing amazing. And sometimes, man, like, again, that whole thing with Jay, I felt it was so powerful, and it melted my heart because, I always tell I can save the world when it comes to these kids, but when it comes to my son and my daughter, it's like they just stop listening to me. I don't know what it is. It's just that parent type of, like, they just shut down. And that was. It's been a while since he had reacted to it. So it checked me out a lot. It reminded me, get off your, like, it's not about you, bro. Get off that. There's like, you have expectations, and when, because pouring, and you, there's your, like, he's listening. You just gotta let him go
Yeah.
his own way. So yeah.
Yeah. I would love to get him on the podcast one day if he's comfortable, of course. I think it'd be cool to get him on the podcast.
That's I'm gonna run it by him. I'm gonna run it by him. I think
Okay.
that'll be dope. I think that'll be fire. I think that'll be fire.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree
I
with
mean,
Tell
he's
tell
incredibly smart and he seems like a great kid. I
you.
would
He's
love
got a
to
beautiful heart. I'm gonna let them. I'm not gonna let him know his. I'm like, yo, Adelaide. Because if I be like, yo, you get on, he's like, oh, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
I'm like,
tell
yo,
him I requested
he
it.
got this thing that when other people act like he
All right,
operates in a different manner. I'm gonna give him the phone. I'm like, yo, here's Adelaide, or this DJ. Like, they just want to talk.
Mhm.
I don't know what it is, man.
Yeah.
But I think
hey,
that'd be dope.
tell him if he gets on. We can talk about how disrespectful these electric Mustangs are.
He loves cars, bro. He loves cars, but
Yeah.
it's really, and again, I'm glad Adelaide even said that because, man, before we do get off the podcast and get off this episode, I just want you guys out here, whether, I know we talk about, life and business, and obviously we talk about organizations. This episode is really, we're talking about schools because we just came off this weekend of, of serving, like, as we've been sharing. But, we just got to do better. We just got to do better as adults. For all my brothers out there, man, if you got nephews, and let's say you don't got no nephews, you don't got no kids, but yo, there's a young brother or sister around you, and sometimes it just takes a minute for you to just allow them to feel like they're being heard and really listen, and just sometimes you don't gotta say nothing, just engage. But sometimes it just takes people like, yo, how you doing? You good? And it's gonna go a mile. That's gonna go so far. Like, as I surf the internet and social media, we got that brother that just passed away. With all this, all this stuff that is going on. I believe it's Tennessee. Is it Tennessee? If I'm not,
Yeah.
condolences to him and his family. But I hate to see, our babies, our young brothers, really getting out there the short end of the stick. And so we got to educate them. We got to really show them that respect that we were just talking about these students, because that could cost one of these brothers their life. And obviously that situation was totally a whole different but just in general, right? So I always really try to make sure Jason understand, and that's why it's good to hear that DJ he's helping you on the sideline. It's great to hear that Allies like, yo, he's a very smart because he's listening. He's listening, and he might not show me, but he's definitely operating off of that characteristics. And I love to hear that, man.
100%. Well, hey, you conclude that very well, man. Before we end this, I want y'all to see a clip about what the principal from this high school had to say about this speech. Hey, we appreciate y'all tapping into Paralyzed Prosperous podcast, and we're definitely gonna see y'all next Wednesday.
So I'm very thankful that we had Jorge come here today to speak to our young men of color. I particularly looked for a speaker that could relate to my boys, that could provide them with hope, that could make them understand that there are opportunities waiting for them as long as they seize those opportunities and take control of those opportunities. And I believe that they got that today from Jorge and the story that he shared with them. So we are thankful for his presence and him pouring into our young men.